When my daughter revealed her in-laws would move in, I discovered an incredible life-changing truth about family. Mike never expected his ordinary afternoon to turn into a whirlwind of chaos. The leaves crunched under his feet as he strolled home from the factory, dreaming of the warm supper waiting for him and the peaceful evening ahead. But when he stepped inside, Emily stood there, breathless, eyes brimming with excitement and anxiety. "Dad. I have news." She barely got the words out before they tumbled into the air like autumn leaves spiraling in a gust of wind. "My parents-in-law are moving in with us." At that moment, Mike felt a tightness grip his chest. It struck him like a slap. Instinctively, he clenched his fists, feeling the warmth of his cozy home warp into an unbearable prison. Generational integrity, self-reliance values etched into his very core seemed to swirl away like a leaf caught in a storm. "What?" "They can't just," but the look on Emily's face silenced him. Torn between respect for his daughter and the rage bubbling inside, Mike could hardly muster the words. Days passed, balmy days turned crisp, and the periodic echo of voices that filled the house felt strange. It became a hotbed of ideas, scrutinies, and unspoken tensions. The in-laws, displaced by hardships, were nice enough folks but utterly removed from Mike's value of hard work and grit. They were used to comforts Mike would never entertain asking for. Each breakfast exchanged was punctured by Mike's unease, and that shame seeped deeper into the cracks of his heart. Just when he thought he could ignore it all, the local factory announced layoffs. Families shattered, vibrant lives threatened, and here he was, on the precipice of detachment, holding a grudge against people too familiar with being down on their luck. Watching his friends and neighbors rally around those laid off, he felt something shift. Mike caught himself in awe on the way home, witnessing neighbors cooking for each other, laughter echoing amidst uncertainty, a sense of camaraderie he'd never quite embraced. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. A week later, emotions erupted over a weekend renovation project meant to help bond the families. An old fence needed replacing. Each hammer strike brought not just nails but built up frustrations to the surface. Angered voices clashed, words that had been simmering for too long cut through the air like knives. The house trembled with tension, and in a moment of heated confrontation, Mike's stern facade broke. "You think you can just waltz in and take over my home? You think hard work is about moving in with someone else when you could stand on your own 2 feet?" The faces around him went pale, and silence enveloped the room, thick and suffocating. Something flickered inside Mike as he stared at their hurt expressions. Was his pride really worth this? In that storm of conflict, he glimpsed vulnerability, and it shook him to his very foundation. It was a choice point: bow to stubbornness or share compassion. His world felt unsteady, and clarity slowly broke through foggy ignorance. Perhaps family meant providing sanctuary even amidst storms, choppy waters of uncertainty. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, setting the sky on fire with colors of a life lived, Mike stood at a crossroads. Would he cling to bitterness or open the door, letting in the light of understanding? The silence hung like a thick fog, pressing down on everyone in the room. Mike's heart raced as he grappled with the weight of his outburst. Realization washed over him, but fear clawed back. What if he chose wrong? He felt the warmth and safety of the home he had worked hard for slipping away, just like his cherished ideals. Emily's hand fluttered across the air, a small, apologetic gesture meant to bridge the chasm opening between them. "Dad. I didn't mean for it to be this way," she whispered. "They're not trying to take over. They need us." Her voice, full of compassion and hurt, stung him harder than the harsh words. Mike looked around the room, taking in the faces of Emily's parents, their expressions strained. They stood together, showing a stalwart calm despite the turmoil brewing beneath their skin. Suddenly, they seemed less like intruders and more like real people with real struggles. The tension in the room eased slightly, as if the walls themselves were taking a breath. A flicker of doubt rested in Mike's mind, and just as quickly, a memory crashed back: his own parents, their hard journeys etched on their faces, the sacrifices they made to provide for him. Mike felt a prickle behind his eyes. They came looking for help, and so did you. He could hear his father's admonition to show kindness to others. It was a lesson he had always stubbornly clung to but rarely enacted. He paused, the weight of his pride suddenly feeling cumbersome. "I'm sorry." The words crawled out of his throat, barked and unpolished. But deep down, they were genuine. Emily's eyes sparked with relief and gratitude. "It's okay, Dad. It's been hard for all of us." She stepped forward, her voice steady. "Maybe we can find common ground. They're family now, too." Family. Mike tasted the word on his tongue, weighing its enormity. Could he embrace this new definition? Could he learn to let go? As if sensing the change, her parents stepped forward, offering cautious smiles. "We don't want to impose. We're just grateful to be here." Their sincerity resonated, echoing in the pit of Mike's stomach. The night turned into a slow, intriguing discussion. Everyone shared stories of heartaches and hopes, of successes and failures. As they spoke, laughter hesitantly punctured the air. Slowly, tentative connections began to form, and walls that had seemed insurmountable shifted slightly with each shared tale. By the end of the evening, remnants of commonalities bloomed between them like flowers pushing through the shyness and uncertainty. But as Mike climbed into bed later that night, uncertainty still nagged at him. He lay awake, replaying the feeling of unease mixed with this strange new hope. Could they really make this arrangement work? When dawn broke, so did the weight of a decision. Would he step into a new way of thinking, ready to embrace this twist in life? Leaning on the edge of change felt terrifying yet exhilarating, like standing on the precipice of a grand adventure. As he looked out at the bright morning light streaming through the window, clarity settled in. Family could be more than blood. Maybe love and support mattered even more than stubborn pride, but then, just as he began feeling buoyed by hope, a knock echoed from downstairs, rupturing the fragile peace he had built. A neighbor standing at the door with frantic news jolted him fully awake again. "Mike. You've got to come see this. It's not good." The storm was far from over. What trouble was brewing now? The knock resonated in Mike's ears, echoing with urgency that felt alarmingly out of place after the warmth and connection of the previous evening. Adrenaline surged as he threw off the covers, scrambling to his feet. He could see the day was brightening beyond the window, but this new abruptness shrouded his optimism in shadows once more. As he rushed down the stairs, thoughts raced through his mind. Had something happened to Emily? Was it about her parents? The knot in his stomach tightened. He reached the door and stood for a moment, collecting his wits before pulling it open. There stood Mrs. Clark, their elderly neighbor, breathless and wide-eyed. A tremor of fear underlined her voice as she spoke. "Mike. There's been a fire just down the block. It's bad. The Johnson's house. I thought you should know." His heart dropped at the news. The Johnson family had lived next door for years. They were the kind of neighbors who shared the last piece of pie or helped with yard work without a second thought. Mike felt a rush of dread spiral through him. "Is everyone okay?" he managed, his voice thick with concern. "I don't know. I saw smoke pouring from their basement window. Folks were already calling the fire department. I just thought you might want to check." The words churned like a storm inside him. The Johnsons had been friendly companions to his family. If they were in trouble, couldn't he just stand by? "Thank you, Mrs. Clark. I'll head over. Keep an eye out, okay?" He rushed back inside, urgency propelling him to grab his jacket. His mind flashed to the evening before, the fragile yet encouraging progress he'd made with Emily's parents blending with this reality of crisis. He stepped out, the air sharp and loaded with underlying tension, heading toward the commotion that was surely mounting on their street. As he approached, the wail of sirens pierced the morning quiet, a dreadful reminder of how quickly life could shift. Neighbors had begun to gather, clusters of worried faces echoing his own anxiety. Dark plumes of smoke curled into the sky, a visual marker of uncertainty and fear. A fire truck roared into view, red lights flashing, and Mike's heart pounded like a war drum. He made it to the front of the crowd just as firefighters began to sprint down to the Johnsons' home, hoses flung over their shoulders, determined and focused. He heard snippets of conversation from onlookers. They were just home getting ready for the day. Did you see the flames? It was so fast with each word, the knot in Mike's stomach tightened further. Forcing himself to focus, Mike pushed through a small gap, desperate to see for himself. Then, he spotted Mr. Johnson standing outside, his face lined with shock. "Mike," he called out, relief washing over his features. "We got out just in time. No one was hurt." That was the silver lining in an otherwise harrowing situation. Relief flooded Mike, but his thoughts quickly turned to the others, the kids. Where were they? Just as he was about to approach Mr. Johnson, a thought struck him hard. What kind of support would they need? Suddenly, the lessons of the previous night echoed back to him. Community, connection, family. It was time to put those lessons into action. Before he realized it, Mike was moving towards Mr. Johnson, determination filling his voice. "What can I do to help?" But among the chaos, a second thought clamped down in his mind. Would Emily's parents, his newfound family, be willing to lend a hand? Could this unexpected situation forge even stronger ties? As the fire raged on, the heart of Mike's home hovered on a precipice once more, daring him to redefine his connections yet again. Uncertainty danced around him, whispering of trials yet to unfold. Could they all come together for the Johnsons? The stakes were rising, and with each breath, Mike understood that the real test of family was yet to come. Mike didn't wait for Mr. Johnson to finish his sentence. The urgency of the moment propelled him forward. "Let me see what I can do," he exclaimed. The fire raged, a beast hungry and wild. Neighbors clustered together, their faces drawn tight with worry, and Mike felt the weight of their collective anticipation. The Johnson kids, a boy and a girl, were a constant presence in their yard during summer barbecues, their laughter mingling with the sound of sizzling burgers. Where were they now? Were they safe? As Mr. Johnson relayed the chaotic moments leading up to the emergency, Mike quickly scanned around. He spotted the Johnson twins, behind the fence, peering through the gap with wide, frightened eyes. Relief surged through him as he approached. "Hey guys, you all right?" They nodded but didn't move. Their faces were pale, the smoke still drifting through the air like an unwelcome ghost. He crouched down to their level. "We're gonna help your folks, I promise. Why don't we get you to a safer spot?" Before they could answer, the sirens blared again, louder this time, as a second fire truck rolled into view. The crowd shifted, and Mike led the kids a little further away, where the air felt less heavy and their small shoulders could begin to relax. As he settled them on a nearby patch of grass, their worry started to fade, replaced by curiosity. "What's going to happen to our house?" the boy asked, his voice trembling. "We'll fix it," Mike reassured them, his heart aching at the fear nestled in their eyes. "We'll come together as a community. You won't be alone." He glanced back at the fire crews now blanketed by smoke, each firefighter a guardian angel battling sharp flames. And then it hit him, how often had he looked away from the bigger picture when life felt too personal? The Johnsons weren't just neighbors, they were part of a community tapestry, each thread interwoven with shared histories. Turning back to the children, he continued, "You know what? I think everyone is going to want to help your family out. We can set up a meal train, find clothes for you to wear, and make sure you have everything you need." The girl perked up, her face finally lighting with hope. Like a picnic? Exactly like a picnic. He grinned, feeling lighter himself. The fire was still raging, but forging connections was a fire of a different kind, one rooted in togetherness. Just then, Mrs. Clark rushed past, a set of house keys clutched in one hand and her phone in the other. Mike. I'm going to check if another neighbor can offer a place for the Johnsons to stay. We can't let them be alone in this. She disappeared amidst the crowd. Mike's heart warmed at her instinct to help. A wave of determination surged within him. They could turn this tragedy into an opportunity. He fished his phone out of his pocket. There was a group chat with Emily's parents. As he began typing, a flurry of ideas came to mind: organizing donations, pooling resources, creating a safety net for the Johnsons. With each tap of the screen, a plan began to take shape, solidifying the pathways that could lead to recovery. But as he looked at the children squeezing their small hands together, he understood this was only the beginning. Their worries were still raw, and this moment would stay with them forever. He turned back toward the scene, catching the eye of Mr. Johnson as he spoke into the phone, undoubtedly coordinating with the firefighters. But what would happen next? If Mike was going to foster that spirit of community, he'd have to step beyond himself. In that moment, he felt a shift in the air, heavy with possibility. What would it truly mean if they not only fought the flames consuming a house but rekindled the warmth of community in their hearts? Just then, Emily appeared through the crowd, her face drawn with concern. Panic flickered in her eyes as she searched for her own sense of belonging. Mike. I heard about the Johnsons. What can I do? And with that, Mike felt the stakes rise higher still. Would this shared experience lead to the deepening bonds he hoped for, or would it unravel the delicate threads he had just begun to weave? As the smoke cleared, the questions hung in the air like tendrils of uncertainty. Emily's voice cut through the chaos like a loud siren, pulling Mike back from his spiral of thoughts. She stood before him, her chest rising and falling, a mix of frustration and fear tinging her features. In that moment, the weight of the event pressed down on both of them. Their shared anxieties meshed into an urgent call to action. Let's start gathering supplies, Mike said, urgency creeping into his tone. He rose to his feet, glancing around the growing crowd. We should organize something right now. Maybe set up a spot for people to drop off clothes or food? We need to be ready for the Johnson family when they come back. Emily nodded, her eyes lighting up with determination. I can rally some friends. They'll help out, especially if they know it's for the Johnsons. Great idea. Mike's heart soared a bit. Familiar faces from the neighborhood were right there, their expressions shifting from shock to purpose. The initial panic seemed to give way to something stronger, a drive to unite. I'll go talk to Mrs. Clark, she said, already backing away. She may know who has extra clothes and things we can borrow. Perfect. I'll coordinate with the fire department, Mike replied, their plans solidifying with every word. As Emily dashed off, he took a deep breath, feeling the air thick with adrenaline. He approached the fire crews, where firefighters were working diligently, their faces set in a mask of concentration. One taller firefighter, with ash streaking his helmet, turned toward him. What do you need, sir? We need information. How are the Johnsons doing? Any word on when they'll be able to come back? Mike's voice shook slightly, the imagined worst-case scenarios creeping into his mind. The firefighter nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. We're focused on containing the fire for now. It's a tough blaze, but we're making headway. The Johnsons are out, safe and sound. Relief washed over Mike, though the weight of the situation didn't dissipate. That's good to hear. We're trying to gather some support for them. Is there anything specific we should know? The firefighter sighed. It's going to be a long road for them, Mike. When they get back, there will be a lot of needs. They lost everything. But seeing the community rally like this means a lot. Keep it up, you're doing good work. With each word, Mike felt his role transforming, shifting from a mere neighbor to someone who could actively make a difference. He leaned closer, his mind racing. We need a centralized place for donations. Can you connect me with who I should talk to about that? Absolutely. Let's get the ball rolling, the firefighter said. He scribbled a name and number on a piece of paper, folding it and handing it over. Mike pocketed the paper, his heart feeling fuller. That small shift in his sense of purpose ignited a fire within him, one that even the engulfing flames around them couldn't dampen. As he returned to where he left the Johnson kids, he noticed more neighbors gathering, the distant murmur of ideas and solutions echoing around him. Thanks to Emily and everyone pitching in, this tragedy could be turned into a lifeline. But then, amidst the chatter, a loud crash pierced the air. Mike's stomach dropped as he spun to see a part of the Johnsons' home collapsing in on itself, a plume of smoke erupting like a wildflower in the chaos. The moment felt frozen, and Mike's heart raced. How much longer could they keep hope alive when faced with such destruction? Just then, he spotted Mr. Johnson emerging from the smoke, his face muddied but determined. Mike rushed towards him, ready to offer support, but all at once, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. In the darkest moments, there often lies unexpected strength. Would they bring the Johnsons back from this abyss? And as Mr. Johnson looked around, catching Mike's steady gaze, one question lingered in the air, heavy with possibility: how could love and community banish the shadows of fear? Mike hurried to Mr. Johnson's side, his heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and fear. The sight of the once happy home now engulfed in flames pressed heavy on his chest. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice tense. Mr. Johnson braced himself against a nearby fence, his eyes scanning the wreckage. "I'm fine, just a bit shaken," he replied, his voice strained but steady. "But my family, we don't have a place to go. We've lost everything." In that moment, Mike felt a deep sense of helplessness. He could sense the gravity of this moment. They were standing at the edge of despair, and the road ahead felt unbearably steep. "You're not alone in this," Mike said, forcing a note of strength into his voice. "We're all coming together to help. We'll find a way." "Thank you," Mr. Johnson breathed, though his face was etched with anguish. "I just don't know how we'll get through this." The kids, they loved that house. It was their home. Emily returned, breathless and electric with energy. "Mike. I spoke to Mrs. Clark, and she's gathering clothes. The entire neighborhood is pitching in. People want to help." "Good," Mike nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. "It's starting already. We just need to keep this momentum going." Suddenly, a voice called from the edge of the crowd. "Does anyone know if they have a place to stay?" It was Greg, another neighbor, his brows knitted in concern. "Not yet, but I'm sure we can figure something out," Mike said, his voice rising above the murmurs. "What if someone opens their home? It doesn't have to be permanent, just until they can sort things out. We all have space to share." The weight of that idea shifted something in the crowd. Faces turned to one another, exchanging glances, nods. Hope hung in the air, delicate yet palpable. Mr. Johnson's eyes widened, full of vulnerability and gratitude. "Are you sure it's okay? We don't want to impose on anyone." Emily stepped forward. "It's not imposing. This is what neighbors do. We take care of each other." As if on cue, Sarah, a soft-spoken woman with a kind smile, stepped forward shyly. "You can stay with us, Mr. Johnson. We have an extra room. It's small, but it's warm, and you'll be among friends." Tears brimmed in the corners of Mr. Johnson's eyes, and he took a breath. "I can't thank you enough. This means the world to us." The crowd erupted in small cheers, encouragement echoing as people began brainstorming what they could bring to help the Johnsons settle in. There was even laughter as children began running alongside one another, the shadow of despair easing just a little. But just as things seemed to take a turn for the better, another loud noise echoed out, this time from the distant road. A fire truck blared its siren, rushing towards them in a whirlwind of red. Everyone froze, eyes narrowed in confusion as it screeched to a halt. What happened now? Someone murmured. Mike's stomach sank. Maybe this was all a temporary escape. The fight against the flames wasn't over yet. As the firefighters jumped out, urgency in their movements, Mike felt a rush of anxiety overwhelm him again. What if this wasn't the end of their battle? What if they were caught in a cycle of emergency that would never let them truly breathe easy? Calmly, he turned to Mr. Johnson, who seemed rooted in place. Stay close, Mike urged. Let us see what this is about. Whatever happens, we're in this together. And while Mike stood there, a small knot forming in his chest, he wondered if they truly could rally enough strength to face whatever news the fire crew might bring. Could a community bond hold strong against the encroaching chaos? Just as he was about to step forward, a child's laugh floated through the air, light and airy. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, hope could flourish even in dire times. The air crackled with uncertainty as the fire truck's siren faded. As Mike watched the firefighters, his mind raced through possibilities. What could they be facing? The firefighters dispersed quickly, canvassing what still smoldered amidst the debris. Their movements were swift but practiced, as if they had fought dozens of these battles before. Mike could feel that knot in his gut tighten. Is anyone hurt? A voice called out. It was Maddie, another neighbor, who had rushed forward. Her eyes darted around, scanning the crowd for answers. Not that we know of, Mike replied, trying to keep his tone steady. Anxiety threatened to creep into his voice. Why are they here? Mr. Johnson's voice was barely above a whisper, desperation etched across his face. Maybe they think there's something still burning, Emily suggested, glancing back at the fire truck. Then, one of the firefighters approached the group, his helmet still on, heavy with soot and sweat. He raised a hand, and everyone quieted instinctively. Listen up, folks, he began, his voice firm but calm. We received a report of a potential flare-up nearby. We're just making sure everything is contained. A collective exhale rippled through the crowd. Relief washed over Mike momentarily, but fear still lingered just beneath the surface. The threat wasn't gone, it was still lurking. Just then, the firefighter continued, we recommend that everyone stay in a safe distance. If there's any sudden change, we'll announce it. Right now, it's okay to stay here. Mr. Johnson's shoulders slumped slightly, a sign of the burden he carried. What if it spreads? He asked, his voice trembling. The firefighter met his gaze, his expression serious. We're trained for this, he assured. But if you have family or kids, I suggest you move to a safer spot. Just as a precaution. Emily squeezed Mr. Johnson's arm gently, a silent show of support. We could go to Sarah's place, she suggested. It's not far, and we'll be together. Mike nodded. Yeah, let us stick together. As they began to move, Mike caught sight of the children, their laughter echoing against the bleakness of the scene. In that instant, he felt a sliver of hope. Kids didn't see the destruction, they saw only the fun that could be found in their little world. Wouldn't it be amazing if that innocence could shine through the chaos? Once at Sarah's home, the atmosphere shifted. The warm familiarity of her house wrapped around them like a hug. The scent of freshly baked cookies intermingled with the anxious energy of the day. The kids flopped onto the floor, diving into a box of toys, laughter spilling out as toys clattered. Does this make sense? Mike caught himself mumbling to Emily as he set the box down in the living room. What do you mean? She asked, pausing to watch the children. Having a normal moment in an abnormal day, he replied, casting a glance towards Mr. Johnson, who sat quietly, still in shock. Sometimes, it's the little moments, you know? Emily said softly. That's what keeps us going. Suddenly, a shout came from the yard. Hey, look! It was Greg again, pointing towards the back window. What's happening over there? Returning to the window, Mike's breath hitched in his throat. A flicker of orange and yellow emerged just beyond the tree line, flames licking the edges of what looked like a neighboring house. Panic surged, and the once lively roar of the children fell to a hushed whisper. "Oh no," he heard Mr. Johnson whisper, the fear palpable in his voice. "This can't be happening," Mike thought desperately. What if this fire was not just one house? What if it spread further? He turned back to the group, feeling gravity weigh on them. "Everyone, stay calm," he said, though his own voice trembled slightly. "We're not alone in this. We'll find a way to fight back." With dread and urgency coursing through him, he stepped outside, ready to confront the chaos once more. But as he breathed in deeply, he feared that this might be the moment when everything changed forever. What would he discover about the strength of their community as flames threatened to consume everything in sight? Mike stepped out into the yard. The heat rising from the flames beyond the trees seemed almost alive, pulsing with menace as smoke curled into the evening air. His pulse quickened as he took in the scene. A crowd was gathering, neighbors peering through windows and from their porches, eyes wide with fear and curiosity. "Everyone stay back," he shouted, raising his hands. "Give the firefighters space to work." He felt oddly adrenalized, the urge to protect setting every nerve in his body on fire. He caught a glimpse of the firefighters now moving rapidly towards the flames, axes and hoses in hand, their shouts drowned out by the crackling chaos. "Are we safe here?" Emily's voice broke through his focus. She stood at the edge of the yard, worry etching lines across her face. "For now," he said, trying to be reassuring despite the dread churning in his stomach. He wanted to believe it. He wanted to grasp onto something solid, something that promised control. Feeling a tug at his sleeve, Mike turned to see Greg standing beside him, his small face pale. "Mr. Mike, what's happening? Are we going to be okay?" "Yeah, buddy." Mike knelt down to meet his gaze, forcing a smile. "Just a little fire, but these brave firefighters will fix it. I promise." But as he stood back up, the fear clawing at him intensified. It wasn't just a little fire, it was the embodiment of chaos threatening their lives, their peace. They were all at the mercy of its destructive whim. He glanced back towards the house, to where the children still played, unaware of the looming danger. "Come on, let's get everyone in the backyard," he said, gesturing Emily and Mr. Johnson to follow. "We need to make sure the kids are safe." The warmth of the smoggy evening air washed over him as they moved. There was tension in the atmosphere, thick and choking, dappling their breaths with anxiety. Once gathered in the open area, Mike felt a bit better. Positioned openly, they could watch what was unfolding without becoming part of it. Adults gathered in clusters, whispering fears and speculating wildly. He caught snippets of their conversations. A couple mentioned a nearby evacuation order, someone else worried about pets left behind, but nothing felt rooted in solid truth. Heartbeats drummed louder, a steady rising panic he could feel all around him. "Mike!" A familiar voice called. It was Sarah, appearing breathless as she rushed over. "I just heard there were 2 houses affected." His stomach dropped. 2? Did anyone else get hurt? She shook her head, her expression grave. "Not yet," but just then, a low rumble echoed from the burning house, an explosion sounding near the back, sending more flames billowing skyward. The children shrieked, their faces painted with confusion and fear. He wasn't prepared for that turmoil to claw at their innocence. "Get in the house now," he shouted, voice reverberating through the chaos. As parents hurried to corral their kids, Mike felt a swell of urgency surge through him. Was this it? Would the fire take their neighborhood? Would families have to pack up and run? As uncertainty gripped everyone, he realized something pivotal. This could shatter their bonds, fracture the community they had built. "Stay together," he implored, scanning the oncoming tide of smoke. Just as he felt ready to charge back towards the flames, to determine the source of the danger, his phone buzzed against his leg. He pulled it out, startled to see a message from his brother. "We need to talk." The tension in Mike's chest tightened, urgent and nagging. But was this truly the time for family drama? As flames danced in the background, he pondered just how intertwined their lives had become. What could his brother reveal that might change everything they thought they knew? Mike felt a knot tightening in his stomach as he stared at the message. "We need to talk." What could that even mean? The fire raged on, topping the treetops with tendrils of smoke that blurred the horizon. Every second felt heavier than the last, stretching out in a surreal haze. "Mike." Sarah's frantic voice pulled him back. "What do we do?" He turned to see her gripping a very frightened Greg, the boy's little body shaking against her side. It hit Mike like a punch to the gut. He couldn't focus on his brother right now. Not when there were kids to protect. Not when so many lives teetered on the edge. "Let us go back to the house and make sure everyone is inside," he directed, trying to sound calm. "The firefighters are doing their job. We should trust them." Yet, trust was a fragile thing these days. As they moved toward the house, an acrid scent filled the air, a pungent blend of smoke and burning wood that made Mike's throat tighten. He looked up to see the neighbors still peeking out, faces lit with a mix of horror and curiosity. "Would it help if we used the hose?" Someone called from the others, desperation creeping into their voice. "You can't. It's too dangerous." Mike shouted back, feeling anger surging. They were not firefighters, and panic wouldn't help anyone right now. Emily grabbed his arm, eyes wide and urgent. "Mike, should we call 911 again? Should we alert anyone else?" He shook his head. "They already know. We're waiting." The uncertain words faltered in his mouth as he wrestled with the reality of the situation. "We can't just stand around," she said, her voice a crescendo of frustration. Feeling the weight of his responsibilities crashing down, Mike clenched his fists. "I know. But what else can we do? We're not equipped to handle this. We need to keep the children safe." As they reached the porch, he spotted a group huddled inside, parents herding their children toward the back of the house. He could see little Zoe, her face smeared with tears as she clutched her stuffed animal. The sight broke something inside him. "Zoe." He rushed towards her, kneeling to bring himself to her level. "You all right, kiddo?" She just shook her head, bottom lip quivering. "I don't want the fire to get us." Mike settled beside her, drawing her into a gentle hug. "I get it. The fire is scary. But look at me, see those brave firefighters? They're heroes. They're going to stop it." She sniffed and nodded, still trembling, but perhaps at least a little reassured. The clamor outside intensified as another boom echoed, sending a wave of heat rolling toward them. The adults reacted instinctively, hearts racing, voices raised in alarm. Behind them, he saw a flame leap higher than before, casting eerie shadows across the yard. "Get back!" Mike called again, raising his voice over the chaos. There was a need for strength, for someone to lead amid the gathering storm of panic. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again. It was his brother, a voicemail this time. Mike swiped at his screen, fingers shaking, heart hammering in his chest. He glanced at his family around him, their faces highlighted by the flickering light of the fire outside. Could he really leave them in this moment? Wasn't it better to ignore the outside world, to face only the immediate dangers? But he couldn't ignore it, could he? His brother was desperate, and that alone ignited a swirling cyclone of urgency within him. "Stay here," he instructed Sarah and the kids, moving toward the back of the house where he could evaluate if it was safe to take the call. As he squeezed through the crowd, anxiety washed over him. What if he ruined everything by focusing on his family drama? While this disaster loomed around them, the tension in the air was palpable, thick like the smoke climbing overhead. He pressed play. "Mike," his brother's voice came through, strained and tense. "I need to tell you something important. Please just listen." As the flames crackled behind him, Mike steadied himself for news that could change everything. What revelation could truly matter more than the fire threatening to consume them? All? Could it even wait? Mike wondered silently as he leaned against the wall, unable to shake the feeling that everything was about to spiral yet again out of control. Mike's heart raced, each word from his brother amplifying the chaos around him. The crackle of flames, the cries of anxious children, the murmur of worried neighbors, it all faded into the background, swirling like smoke around him. He barely registered his brother's voice, but the urgency was palpable. "Mike, it's about Dad. He needs help. I can't do this alone." Just then, a powerful blast erupted from the burning house, sending shards of debris spiraling through the air, and the crowd collectively gasped. In that moment, familiar dread unfurled within Mike's chest. Was this really happening again? A flicker of memories rushed in, the last time his family fell apart, snipped by stress and unhealed wounds. "Breathe, breathe," he whispered to himself, forcing the noise away as he took a shaky breath. The flames leaping behind him demanded his attention, and he turned to see Emily calling his name. There was no time to dwell on his brother's troubles. "Dad, please," he could hear in the back of his mind. But where was the strength to face two fires, one physical and the other familial? "Mike." Emily's voice sliced through, breaking him from his spiraling thoughts. She was pale, her eyes darting to the chaos unfolding outside. "The firefighters think we should evacuate just in case." He could see the fear etched in the faces of his neighbors, but something sparked within him, igniting a new sense of purpose. This was his community, his family. "Okay," he replied, quickly nodding, "but let us gather everyone first." As he stepped back into the crowd, clarity pierced through the haze. This moment was less about fleeing and more about standing together. "People!" Mike shouted, urgency lacing his tone. "We need to help each other right now. I see so many faces here, and we've been through too much to let fear divide us. Let us move together." A ripple of solidarity spread as neighbors took their cue from him. Mike organized small groups, each tasked with ensuring the children were safe and everyone had what they needed. Together, they began calling out names, rallying those who were still uncertain, pushing through anxiety toward connection. In the midst of the bustle, Mike glanced back at Mr. Johnson, who looked both lost and puzzled. He could see the weight of the fire reflected in his eyes. It mirrored Mike's own burdens. Wandering over, he clasped a hand on Mr. Johnson's shoulder, a gesture of unspoken support. "We're in this together. Your family is safe. They'll get through." Mr. Johnson broke into a small, grateful smile, the first glimpse of light in his eyes amid the darkness. It reminded Mike that those small shifts mattered. They connected them beyond the flames, filling the spaces left by fear with hope. As they directed people where to go, laughter flickered through the anxiety, the children again making the most of a chaotic situation. Laughter did not mean denial, it meant they were alive, they were together. And that was enough. As they made their way towards safety, Mike's phone buzzed again, another message flashing from his brother. Yet he didn't want it. Not now. He felt he'd disconnected those familial ties only to realize this: there was a deep-rooted truth about family. It wasn't limited to blood. Love and support expanded outward like the flame of those heroes working tirelessly against this inferno. Once outside, the group convened in a nearby park, the brief distance from the fire feeling almost surreal. As they monitored the situation, even though the chaos lurked behind them, they began to share stories, breathing life into an uncomfortable situation. "Let us create a central communication point," Emily suggested briskly, her eyes shining with determination. "We can gather supplies and check in on the Johnsons whenever we need to." "Yes. Together, we can build that web of support," Mike nodded, feeling a swell of pride as he looked at her. Days later, after the embers cooled, they gathered again, a makeshift community meeting in the park where laughter transformed the lingering anxiety. Mike saw Mr. Johnson holding his children, talking to others who had faced lost homes together. This gathering symbolized something so much richer than before: the rebuilding of trust, kindness, and togetherness. As he looked around, Mike felt a shift in the air, one that finally fused their stories together. His brother still waited to be called, but right now, this felt like a homecoming. It was both comforting and invigorating, filled with the very essence of family forged in flames. In that moment, Mike understood it fully. Family bonds could withstand raging fires, both cruel and beautiful. All it took was the will to join together, to support one another, and to remember that only together could they weather the storms to come. And as the sun dipped low, casting golden hues over faces filled with hope, he smiled, knowing this new beginning was simply the next chapter in their shared journey together. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss out on the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to keep feeding the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your voice matters, your life matters, and together we can inspire.